Only Murders in the Building, Season 5.
The hit Hulu original is back.
The night Lester died, he was talking with this mobster.
Was he killed in a hit?
We need to go face to face with the mob.
Get ready for a season
Buongiorno, signore.
Oh, this is how I die.
you can't refuse.
You're gonna save the day, like you always do, by being smart, sharp, and almost always by mistake.
The Hulu original series, Only Murders in the Building, premieres September 9. Streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply. New episodes Tuesdays.
This episode is brought to you by KPMG. Making an impact is how KPMG helps make the difference. KPMG applies advanced tools and strategic thinking to convert data into actionable knowledge and deliver value by improving performance through transformation, modernizing processes with technology, harnessing the power of data, navigating complex M&A transactions, and enhancing trust among stakeholders. Go to kpmg.us/advisory to learn more. KPMG. Make the difference.
You know, you can't keep just adding stuff into the playbook. It's going to turn into a Bible of just pages on pages on pages of all the good things. And so what are you going to take out when you put something in has been the biggest thing.
When you watch us run around, it looks like chaos. I like to say that hopefully it's at least organized chaos. But yeah, you know, we do everything same as teaching. And so we start with a very specific concept, whether it be the coverage or the front or the run fit or whatever it might be. And we install that with the entire defense.
Some things that we do to, number one, keep it competitive. Number two, to establish a great look all the way through practice. Number three, to retain our players and continue to develop our players. I just think that's the best way that we're really having success with in terms of, how we blend our practice structure.
We're back for our first episode of Hansen Ratings D3 Coach and Coordinators of the Week, presented by Tully. And this year we have a new host for it. I'm going to step back and I'll talk about our host in a minute. But I want to welcome first Logan Hansen to the podcast. And Logan, it's great to have you back here and kicking off the 2025 season.
Thanks, Keith. Had a lot of fun doing this last year. I know I got a bunch of coaches that we were able to talk to, and I learned a lot, and I'm excited to, keep highlighting Division III.
Next introduction I want to make is our host for the 2025 Coach and Coordinators of the Week, John Snell. John was my former head coach at Baldwin-Wallace University, did an excellent job there. He is now the Associate Athletic Director at Baldwin-Wallace. John is just a wealth of knowledge on the game. He is D3 football through and through, serves on the D3 committee for the playoffs, and a lot of our guys have gotten to know John through the work he does just as a site host as well. You see him all over the place when it hits playoff time. So, John, I'm excited to have you here and hosting this series this year.
Keith, I appreciate the invite to do this. Obviously, anytime I can be involved in Division III football, it's a great opportunity for me, and it's a great opportunity to meet Logan and to see his information. Again, I appreciate this invite and look forward to meeting all the different coaches and going through the season with this.
John's definitely going to be here to narrate and navigate the educational side of this as we talk to the coaches. The selection side of this really falls on Logan Hansen and the model that he's put together to crunch through a bunch of numbers and come up with our weekly honorees. So Logan, remind our audience here how we pick our honorees each week.
Right, so I have my website, Hansen Ratings, and I do opponent-adjusted team ratings for every team in the country in Division III. And using those team ratings, then I grade every single team's game. So this is something I started doing last year for the podcast, was creating coaching ratings for each week. So teams are graded on how well you perform overall. So that's an opponent-adjusted unit performance. If you do really well against a really good opponent, you're going to get graded well. But then the other half of the formula is also, did you improve this week from what your baseline was the week before? So are you continuing to get better? And are you doing it against quality competition? So the types of teams that we're going to see awarded a lot, it's not always going to be top 25 teams, because if you're already playing at a really high level and you're maintaining that, you'll still grade out fairly well, but it's going to be hard to get that A+ or A grade if you're not improving every single week. So we're looking for teams that are doing it at a high level and teams that are getting better every single week.
Yeah, it's been an exciting series, and it's great to meet all these coaches over the course of the season. Doing this for 11 weeks, we're going to meet 33 different coaches, talk to them about some of the ideas that they have that can help coaches throughout the season in the educational aspect of it. And certainly we'll hear about some of the things that help them achieve the award and the honor each week. And so we're going to kick off the 2025 season with our first honoree. I'm going to kick it over to you guys, Logan, and let you introduce our first offensive coordinator of the week.
Offensive coordinator of the week this week was Justin Clark from North Carolina Wesleyan, who won 64-12 against Averett on early week game. So they didn't play on Saturday, so they get some good rest going into next week. But they had an outstanding game. My model thought this was going to be a relatively close game, and it was anything but. They had over 600 yards of total offense, and they averaged nearly 10 yards per play and had a whopping 23 yards per pass. That's not per completion, that was per drop back. They had 14 different players with a rushing attempt, which, if you've been around the game for a long time, if you've got that many guys that are getting their hand on the ball, that usually means that your offense is doing some things right. And they never punted in a game. I know last year we had a couple of teams that never punted, and if I see that in a box score, that's going to be a pretty good indication that that team's in the running for offense of the week. And then they also had multiple scoring drives of over 90 yards. So one of the things that caught my eye when I was scouring the nation was the fact that they were doing this on long fields. A lot of times when a team kind of comes out of nowhere and has a big explosion in their performance, maybe they had a bunch of short fields that week, and their defense is really what helped them out. Not saying the defense didn't help, but having multiple drives, scoring touchdowns over 90 yards is a great game. And this was the most points that North Carolina Wesleyan, the Battling Bishops, have ever scored in the history of their program, which started in 2004. So congrats to Coach Clark and the rest of the Battling Bishops.
Well, let's hear from Coach Clark and Coach Snell as they talk about some of the ideas that Coach Clark has to share.
Good afternoon. We are joined by Justin Clark, the offensive coordinator from North Carolina Wesleyan. Scored 64 points this past weekend and had a great offensive output with a big win over Averett College. Congrats, Justin, on your success this past weekend. As we've talked, we want to recognize you, obviously, for your success, but we also ask that you give our viewers some education, some information maybe that they can take away as helpful to them and maybe useful at some point. It's a great educational tool for us. So we'll let you share, and I may bounce a few questions off you, but looking forward to hearing what you have to say. You had mentioned something about keeping things simple.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. It kind of like we were, talking about earlier. I think every year you have all these ideas of what you want to do and how to do it, and everything looks good on TV, but you're going to have some guys to be able to execute that. And so every year, the biggest thing for us is philosophically, what are we going to be? And kind of keeping it within the philosophy of our system. And that's one of the biggest things that I've learned from Coach Ski is just the multiplicity that we have, but yet keeping in the framework of it, it's easy for our guys. And so the very first thing that we're going to look at every year is just kind of what personnel that we're going to be and what type of team are we going to be. And then once we figure out what is our best personnel grouping and how we can utilize that, then we got to find the playmakers. And that's going to be the easy part is what's our personnel, who's going to be our playmakers, and then now we got to get them to football. I think at times, me, myself included, I get overcomplicated and I want to jump to higher level expectations and window dressing and all that type of stuff that you see every day. But at the same time, at the core, what can you guys execute and what can we be executing it in an efficient manner? And I think that's the biggest thing that I have learned since I've been here is if you're going to add something, what are we going to take away? You can't keep just adding stuff into the playbook. It's going to turn into, a Bible of just pages on pages on pages of all the good things. And so what are you going to take out when you put something in has been the biggest thing. And then after that, it's just kind of what we're doing. We know that we're going to spread the defense out, through formations, through motions, through getting the numbers advantage. And then the biggest thing for us is, we believe that you're going to have to run the football to win. And each week that may look different. Last week we were able to run the ball pretty efficiently. I think we were, plus 35 or 40 maybe on the attempts. The next week, who knows what they do. They may try to put 8, 9 guys in the box, and we're going to be able to throw the football on the outside. And so, but we believe that you're going to have to run the ball to win and establish the line of scrimmage, especially late in the season when it comes time to win. And then at the end of the day, we got to be able to execute. If you can't execute, might as well not get off the bus. And so being able to kind of wrap all of those things up together is what we look at each week. And so we can look different year to year. We can look different from a game plan week to week, depending on what we're doing.
I'm sure between your mind and Coach Volkovsky's mind, he's got a lot of offense in his mind, I'm sure, over the years. As I said, he's a great offensive mind. Between the two of you, there's probably a million things that you could be doing or adding to, what your playbook has. You mentioned when you put something in, you take something out. And I've heard of coaches that had a philosophy that for every one they put in, they'd take two out. Can you talk a little more about your thoughts or how you go about taking something out when you're adding things?
Yes, and it's funny that you say that because I'm constantly looking. It was like, stop looking at Twitter. Everything looks good at Twitter. One of the things that we can do is, what is the framework of our offense? Hey, coach, this looks good. Well, this may be this concept. All we got to do is just add one more tag to it. So don't try to come up with another play. Our guys know it as this concept. It's the same picture. It may not look exactly like we saw it on film, but it's the same foundational structure of the play. So now this is what we can do within the scheme that we run. And I think that's been really the biggest takeaway that I've learned from him is just, this is who we're going to be. Now, how does it formulate into executing into our style of game?
Yeah, you can come up with a million plays, but the key is keeping the adjustments or the additions within your structure, right? That keeps you limited, but gives you some additional things to do off of what you're already doing.
Yes, sir.
Right?
That's been really big for us. And so it's exciting to see what we can kind of come up with each week. Each week is different. And that's kind of the fun thing about game planning is it can look different each week to week for sure.
Do you have a preferred run to pass ratio, Justin?
Whatever's going to get the job done. Coach Ski and my dad remind me of they kind of cut in the same mold of, hey, we're going to run the ball and we're going to run these certain schemes, and they're going to have to stop us. And so what is the answers to, if they're going to stop our number one run, then what are we going to go to? And then after that one, hey, what is the next thing that we need to do? And so it's always kind of this if-then mentality of how can we protect our 1 to 2 core runs within the system that we can still kind of be explosive and things of that nature. But it's been really fun this year trying to put these pieces together.
How do you and Jeff communicate on game day in terms of, hey, let's run the ball here, or no, I want to throw it here? How do you guys communicate that?
So we get in, and like I said, he's going to say, hey, I want to run the ball in this situation, and so that's kind of piggybacking off of what he wants to do. Hey, open it up a little bit more. What's the defense looking at? What are you thinking? And he does the good. He's very hands-on during the game as far as this is what I like to see. And he's going to call a lot of the game plan. Predominantly he's the heavy play caller. But at the same time, he's going to ask me every once in a while. And then when we go some different tempos and things of that nature, he lets me go have some fun a little bit, but that's the thing of game plan wise is the plan matching going in. What's the adjustments that we need to make? His and I conversation are more post series of, hey, this is what we're thinking, things of that nature. Yes, sir.
He certainly wasn't afraid to dial up a pass on your first offensive play on Saturday.
No, not at all. And, he kind of joked to me on the sideline and say, hey, I appreciate you convincing me to do that. But I was like, yeah, coach, that one felt good. That one felt good in my heart. I ain't gonna lie to you.
We want to congratulate you again, Justin. If you want to mention some of your staff people, we certainly want you have the opportunity to do that. You guys are obviously doing a great job, so feel free to mention some of those guys if you want here.
Absolutely. I want to give a big shout out to our offensive line coach and our running back coach, Coach Wilson. This is his first year coaching with us. That's Coach Kevin Wilson's son that graduated from Ohio State. So he has a really good, strong background. He does a really good job with our guys. And coaching is a small world. I didn't realize it, but my father-in-law and his father they were in the same wedding together when they were GAs at North Carolina. And so it's kind of a small world when you get into the coaching aspect of it. But he does a really good job, and I'm excited to see what he does in his future. But our running backs coach, Coach Chance Harris, This is his first year here with us, was a running back at Morehead State. Does a really good job in the room of understanding how to coach the guys and getting the best out of the guys. And then we got a former player that played for us that is now our tight ends coach that's really bought in, is doing a really good job. And so it's a fun room. We got a mix of, old to young, and, it's fun getting back into the room because we can kind of just be ourselves. And I think that goes a long way of putting everything together. There's no big egos in the room. And I think that says a lot to a lot of staffs of, we're going to have to put something together that these guys can go execute and get the egos out the door, and let's go get it done.
Well, if Kevin Wilson's son has any kind of mind like his dad, I'm sure he's got a great offensive mind as well. Great to have somebody like that on your staff. And congrats to all you guys. Again, give Coach Jeff our congrats, and appreciate your time and appreciate you're willing to share. And again, congrats on a great performance on Saturday.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that so much. And thank you for everything that you guys do.
We're proud to have Tully as the presenting sponsor of the Hansen Ratings D3 Coach and Coordinators of the Week Award. Tully is the perfect tool for high school and Division III programs, helping coaches track readiness, performance, and development in ways that truly impact a season. At Walsh Jesuit, Adam and Matt Redmond have seen those results firsthand. Here's how Tully helped their players stay strong, more confident, and ready to perform when it mattered most.
So to talk about last season, undefeated regular season, deep run the playoffs, how did Tully impact and benefit you guys down the stretch?
It inspired confidence because our players know exactly how strong they are in our metrics. They know how much they're supposed to weigh and how much they do weigh. We track those things all the time. And so our kids know where they stand. There's nothing more deflating as an athlete or a coach to see your numbers go down as the season progresses. And that's the number one thing that we try to do at Walsh Jesuit is we want our numbers to trend in the right direction. We're trying to play 16 weeks. And so we want our team to be bigger, stronger, faster, more durable, and also more confident in weeks 13, 14, 15, and 16 than we are in weeks 1 and 2. So it inspires confidence. We max out on some of our metrics going into week 1 of the season. And what our kids see through Tully is just a drastic amount of improvement. And there's no better way to get your team fired up and ready to play. They all walk out like they're Spartans because they just put up huge numbers compared to what they were doing before.
That's the impact Tully is making for programs like Walsh Jesuit, and why we're proud to have them as the presenting sponsor of the Hansen Ratings D3 Coach and Coordinators of the Week Award. If you're a high school or Division III program looking for a simple, powerful way to track your readiness, performance, and player development, Tully is the perfect tool for you. Go to tully.app or click the link in the show notes.
Hello there. We are joined by Dan Bauder, defensive coordinator at Wisconsin Platteville. Dan, congrats on a great win this past weekend over Aurora. As you know, being a former recipient of this recognition, we ask that you give something to our coaches, some tidbit, some educational thing that our coaches can take with them, Dan, that you're comfortable with. So you mentioned something, the concept of same as teaching. If you won't mind going a little more in depth with that, it'd be great. We look forward to hearing.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get started into the topic, obviously same as teaching, I think it's something that I picked up from a couple of different big time coaches, Kirby Smart or Dan Lanning or Saban, one of those. I can't remember the exact guy that I remember getting it from, but our guys on the defensive staff are incredible. We had a little bit of turnover, and with success, last year we had an awesome year and we had a little bit of turnover in the offseason. So Coach Reinhardt left to go be the defensive coordinator at St. Xavier down in Chicago, which is a really good program. Coach Pat Sheehan, ended up going to Mattia Valley and the Chicagoland, and he's a head high school coach now. He's 2-0, and that program hasn't been in that neck of the woods in a long time. We had to replace a couple of guys, but Coach Bacon is our D-line coach. He was an awesome player, all region, all everything guy, and he's a better coach than he is a player, and that's saying a ton. Coach Whitenhiller works with him in the front. He's a part-time guy that is a middle school teacher and then moonlights as a college football coach, I like to say. The second level guys, Coach Alberico and one of our student coaches, Evan Vogt. Those two guys do an incredible job with the linebackers. And then on the back end, we had to replace Coach Reinhardt with Coach Martin. He was our strength coach last year and has stepped in and done an incredible job getting those guys to play at a high level. And then we had another former player, Nick Alberico is working with our corners. So, we have 6 guys at any given time working with our defensive kids, and really allows us to get a bunch of eyes on them and get them in the right places. So our staff is incredible, and our kids are awesome to work with. They are one of one, and it's a fun place to be right now.
So give us a little more insight, as I said, to your same as teaching concept.
Yeah. When you watch us run around, I've gotten this from a number of different people that, when we watch us run around, it looks like chaos, and I like to say that hopefully it's at least organized chaos, right? But yeah, we do everything same as teaching. And so we start with a very specific concept, whether it be the coverage or the front or the run fit or whatever it might be. And we install that with the entire defense. So when we install our cover 3 coverages, we install that with the nose and the tackle in the room. We want everybody to hear everything. So there's no bottlenecks in the information. Everybody knows exactly what it is, right? And if you watch us run around, you know that we play some 3, we play some quarters, we play some Tampa, right? But we try to make sure that everything that we teach starts in one spot. And if you think of it like a web diagram or whatever, everything starts with this call. And then we try to teach same as off of that wherever we possibly can. Again, it's not a secret. We pressure a lot. We drop ends and anchors at times. And we got guys blitzing from all over the different places on the field. And we can't do that if we don't have the ability to put it in manageable pieces of information for our kids, right? Because, at the end of the day, it's not really what I know or the rest of the coaches know. It's what the kids know, right? And they all have these little hard drives inside their helmets, right? And they can only handle so much information. And if you allow those guys to play fast and you allow those guys to be who they are, you're going to be in a lot better position. And so the way we do that is right from the jump, first day of fall camp, everybody hears the parent, we call it the parent coverage. Everybody hears the parent coverage call for each of our 3, 4 different coverages. And then we extrapolate everything off of that and try to teach every new call. There's always going to be different pieces for every one of those things, right? But we try to keep it, as few of people that have to change within that call from the parent call. We are going to try to do that. That way, when we get things installed, we can go into an install meeting with the front and say, hey, this is same as the last call we put in. There you go. You guys are done with install. And so the more that we can do that, the better. And like I said, at the end of the day, if you have good kids and you allow them to play fast, you're typically going to have some success.
Now, will you do that essentially the whole season, Dan? When you install something defensively, meet with the whole group first and then scatter to essentially position meetings?
Yeah, so during the season, it looks just a little bit different. We have our Tuesday scouting report install for choice downs, and we will give them that information, and then I will give them the broad picture, like, hey, we're going to run this against these guys because they do X, Y, and Z, but it is same as, this call that we installed in fall camps. And so we will try to do that as we go throughout the season as well. It's a little bit more broken down, a little bit more specific during the season, obviously, but we still do whole group. And we want everybody to hear the exact same message. And then, the things that need to be taught specifically will then be taught specifically within, the front or the second level or the third level, or, more specifically within the very individual position group.
I'm assuming, obviously, your reasoning is the recall for the kids seems to be much better when you use that terminology, same as, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the kids look at it like, I don't got to learn anything new. Specifically when you get into, we do a lot of different pressure pass. We run a lot of different, this guy drops at this time, this guy blitzes off this edge or whatever it might be. And we do a lot of different things with that specifically tailored to an offense within that week. But if we can teach it to the kids, like, hey, this is no different. We're just calling it to a different variable, right? Instead of running all your pressures to the field, this week, hey guys, we're going to call it to the tight end, or we're going to call it to the running back, or we're going to call it to the quarterback's throwing arm, whatever it might be. And you can teach it, hey, this call is the exact same thing. You're just going to make your blitz call off of a different variable, right? And again, if you can get 10 out of 11 to think of it as the exact same call that you put in 3 weeks ago, you are working magic.
Can we translate that to the field, Dan? And when you guys get to the field, do you typically do a walkthrough with everybody first? So again, you're kind of taking that classroom stuff to the field and doing it all together and then breaking up.
I'll go through two different ways because obviously fall camp is a little bit different than the game week, right? In fall camp, we will install at night, and it takes about an hour or so to put the calls in. And then we will take that directly to the field and we will walk through it. So us defensive guys, we all got the trash cans, right? So we get the trash cans out and we walk through all the different formations and we run that call or those group of calls to normal formations. So this standard 11, 10, whatever it's specifically tailored for. Then the next morning before we practice, we will do another walkthrough where we hit the oddities. So oddities we talk about within our defensive staff is empty, FIB, motion, dead receivers, unbalanced, tackle over, whatever it might be, right? And so then the kids will actually run the calls that we put in the night before. They'll run them to all of the formations we think we're going to get. And then the next morning, we'll hit them to the oddities that we think that we may get. So before they've even run the call in practice, they've walked through it to every situation that I can think of. And with offensive football today, there's a lot of those.
There's a lot.
Right. But that way we get it installed in the classroom, installed in walkthrough, we run it in practice, and then we watch it that afternoon. So the kids get essentially 5 different looks at it from install, walkthrough, run it, watch it, and then we move on to the next one. In season, again, it's a little bit more tailored in season. It has to be, right? You don't have as much time. But that would be on Tuesdays. So Tuesdays in our choice down meeting that we have, we'll go through what the new calls are, if there are any, right? We try not to. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? We're not trying to reinvent the wheel every single week. But if there are new calls, we will go through them there. Then we will walk through them in pre-practice. We will run them during practice, and then we will watch them the next day. So again, trying to get at least 4, sometimes 5 different types of stimulus for install, because everybody, as you know, everybody learns a little bit different. Some guys can pick it up right off the board and go run it. Some kids have to physically do it, and some kids got to screw it up first.
Yeah, that's the key, is appealing to the different learning styles that kids have, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Great stuff, Dan. Really appreciate your insight on your same as terminology and the use of that same as, I think, in helping your players recall. And again, congrats on your success this past weekend. Again, giving up 1 rushing yard against a quality team like Aurora is a great thing. So congrats again. Best of luck this coming week and the season. And we appreciate your time, and congrats on this recognition. Great job.
Thank you. Like I said, our coaching staff, our defensive staff is insane. They're so good, and they allow us to do a lot of different things. And we got the right kids in the program, and they bought in, and it is a little bit much at times, right? I would say, it takes probably 3 specific installs for like our second level guys to get what we're doing and speak the language, but our guys buy into it. They stick together. They love playing the game with each other, and it's a fun place to be. Ever since, Coach Munz took over 3 seasons ago, something like that. He does an incredible job of steering the ship and got good people. It's a fun place to be.
Yeah, well, when you win the conference there, that's quite an accomplishment. You guys have done a great job, and you play in a great conference. So again, congrats.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
A message from McAfee.
I'd say howdy, but I'm not a real cowboy.
And I'm not a real alien.
We're deep fakes, and because of fakes like us,
it's hard to tell what's real.
Unless you have McAfee. McAfee's scam detector automatically identifies text and email scams.
And even deep fakes.
And it works everywhere, even out on the range.
Yeehaw! But you're not even a real cowboy.
If they're faking it, they're not making it past us. Get award-winning scam detection today. McAfee.com/keepitreal.
We're now joined by Joe Polka, head coach at Adrian College, who had a great win this past weekend against Valparaiso of Indiana. And as you know, in our show, we want to congratulate Joe for the win, but talk to him a little bit about some of the things that he feels are important from a coach's perspective regarding his practices, good on good, and how he conducts his practices to assist his people up front. So Joe, if you want to talk about that a little bit, again, this is an educational concept for coaches. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, one of the things I'm often asked about is our practice structure. And I obviously have college coaching experience at Eastern Michigan, St. Joseph, Indiana, some of the things that you and I talked about. But I'm a longtime high school coach, honestly, and we brought a lot of those elements to what we do in our practices at Adrian. So, for example, we don't stop with situational teaching at the end of camp. I know that's always a big part of your camp install, on a daily basis, going through those things, but we will continue to do that throughout the course of the year. So like in a typical weekly install meeting or scouting report meeting, or, a watching film type of meeting, we're going to go more to maybe sharing notes on huddle with our guys, as opposed to continuing to break down film. And we're going to talk more situations with them, the situations that they're going to deal with in today's practice, and what we want to make sure that we get out of that. And then, within the practice, there will be probably 3 to 4 times we will at least go, a 4 or 5 minute shot, good on good. So for us, it'll be ones versus ones, and twos versus twos will follow. We do have a large roster, so while we're doing that, we split, and we will do the same thing with our young guys on the other side of the field. So how do we marry that with a typical scout team approach? There will be certain periods of the practice where we're full scout. So, for example, Tuesday is a heavy scout day. We'll run, we're going to try to get 45 offensive and defensive reps just fully scouted on that day. But then when we get to the other days of the week, a little more like a traditional high school, frankly, what we'll do is we will take time and we will two huddle our best offensive guys that we can. Not our ones necessarily. Our ones will go work on something with a coordinator, but we're going to put our twos and we're going to put our threes, and we're going to go against the one defense. The things I like about it, the look is so much more improved for our defensive guys. The other thing too is every kid on that scout team is getting coached by his position coach. So it helps us with retention. It helps us with development as well. And then we'll turn it around and we'll go team offense. And when that happens, we're trying to obviously get as many plays as we can against our opponent's look, but the look is given by our twos, and it's given by our blend of threes and scout team guys. And again, they're coached by their position coaches. It's all in our terminology, so it has the feel of a camp practice, so to speak, really all the way through our season. And then I think what that does, it just helps us to develop our players. So when we need them because of injury or whatever it may be, they've taken so many quality reps. And then, as I mentioned, whether it's a team heat period every day, whether it's a coming out period, third down period, we will do it competitively. So we will have that third down period. We're going to go 3rd and 6, 2 shots in a row, ones versus ones, and then we'll go 3rd and 3, 2 shots in a row. And we make it competitive. There are winners and losers in it every day. We'll even continue to increase the competition in the scout period. So, let's say it's a day that we're emphasizing third down. What we've got to hit is we've got to hit 8 of 12 third down conversions against our scout team, for our offense to get a win there. So, those are some things that we do to, number one, keep it competitive. Number two, to establish a great look all the way through practice. Number three, to retain our players and continue to develop our players. So I just think it's the best way, but it's a way that we're really having success with in terms of, how we blend our practice structure.
Joe, that period where your number 2 and 3 defense is going against your number 1 offense, correct?
Correct.
You're not doing that simultaneously with the number 1 defense going against 2 and 3 offense, correct?
Correct. So I know that flies in the face of conventional thinking sometimes, because you're like, well, I could just continue to get massive amounts of reps on both sides of the ball. What we have found is we practice at such a fast pace, we're probably going to get those reps. And at the end of the day, maybe I'm sacrificing 10 minutes of the practice to do it that way. But the look that we get is so much more high quality. What the one defense is doing at that point is they're with our coordinator, but all of the other defensive coaches are helping administer that scout team look with their guys. But those ones are off working something different. Maybe they're on stunt review, or if it could be a blitz pickup if it's on the offensive side of the ball. So something that's non-contact, a little more mental, or a little more specialized for them during that period.
I think that's great, because you are getting work against better groups, and you're getting everybody coached the way you want them to be coached, which I think is beneficial, especially your younger kids.
Well, the nice thing too is I'm a part of every one of those periods, so it's not like I'm working, because I coach on the offensive side of the ball. On a typical Tuesday, for example, when we have those just split scout periods, I'm not down with the defense. What this allows me to do the rest of the week is to be in the full flow of the practice and be able to watch and coach all our players, and frankly, help and evaluate our coaches as well. So it's easy for me to say, hey, here's something I saw, in this period, we got to get better at this, or there's too much standing around here, or what happened on that, so it really keeps us as a cohesive group. I have my pulse on everything that's going on. the other part of that too is just like what happened at Valpo this week. I feel like we were physically prepared because we go against each other so much. And, we're smart about it. We don't tackle the ground. It's a thud period. It's a quick whistle period. A lot of it has to go into, how you coach those. We're Division III, right? So, I'm not always going to get the best athletes. So we spend a lot of time on teaching kids how to practice, and that means when a running back gets to the second level, we're tagging off. There's no hits on the sideline. There's none of that. So we really have to remain healthy and take care of each other. But that first second or two of the play, is still a live full go. We just don't, take anybody to the ground. It's all thud and then tag off when it gets to the second level. So teaching your players to stay up, teaching your players, and we always use the term practice like a pro, and teach kids what that actually means. And that's been very beneficial for us. The other thing that we do too is I never keep the practice structure the same. So, we're traditionally in the past, maybe 5 years ago, our team periods were always at the end. Now our team period may be the third period of the practice. Where we practice special teams, I'll intersperse that at different times. We may end the practice with 7-on-7. What we will typically do too is, again, with such a large roster, we reward those younger kids at the end of the practice. So a lot of times we'll have our full team stay there for 5 minutes of what we call gray team. We have gold and gray teams. And those kids go through the situations too. And our older guys love being a part of that. So, just a few things that we do, and I'm not sure how everybody does it at this level, but those things have been very beneficial for us.
You'll do that throughout the season, Joe?
Yeah, and that's correct. So we don't go into, obviously it's easy in camp because it's 1 versus 1s, 2s versus 2s, or, you start to ease into scout teams, but we keep this structure, all the way through it. And honestly, like we'll on our Tuesday practice and on our Friday practice, we are not a walkthrough on Friday team. So we will practice in the morning to make sure we have enough rest, but it is it's 5 minutes of each special team. And then we'll go through a 20 to 25 play script offensively of all the situations. We're in shells and we thud, and then we'll flip it right around for the defense and do the same thing. So again, at Adrian, before I got there, they were, and everybody has a reason for doing it their way. I've just seen us have success with this in terms of preparation and making that practice meaningful. And frankly, too, there's things that we still are honing in on all the way up until the end of the week. I'm not a guy that has the plan 100% set on Tuesday. We're making adjustments all the way up until, through that Friday practice. So those are some other things that we do as well.
I think a lot of people have kind of moved in that direction, Joe, on Friday not being that old traditional walkthrough anymore. It's more of a run through. And I really like that. I didn't like the old traditional walkthrough. So I think your change up in the practice format is really a good thought.
Well, it's just, it's our way and we've had success with it, but I would recommend some elements of that because what it does, it also keeps our kids fresh. It also keeps our kids locked in on Friday. It's not unfamiliar for me to restart a Friday team script if it doesn't look the way it needs to look. So, there's a sense of urgency when you go out on Friday. It's not just going to be a jog through. We need to make this practice count. And we film it and, we review the film. Everything we film, we watch. So we've gotten away from that. Okay, get to Friday, it's an easy day. It's still, we're smart about taking care of kids' legs and all those type of things. But tell guys every rep has meaning at our place. And that's just another way of reinforcing that.
No doubt. Joe, that's great stuff. If you want to recognize your staff, obviously they did a great job for you this past weekend. If you want to recognize them.
Yeah, I don't want everybody to laugh at me, and hopefully a win over Valpo kind of validates some things. But I have 2 sons on our staff too, so it's the ball goes around the staff. So on the offensive staff, my son Tyler coordinates the offense. We have 2 offensive line coaches, Alex Nolman and Thor Daly. Jeb Palka, my younger son, coaches our receivers. Sean Ream coaches our running backs and tight ends. We have a veteran coach, Steve Wilwall, that also helps with running backs as well. Josh Jackson, a name people may recognize from his playing days at Virginia Tech, is one of our quarterback coaches. I've got an additional quarterback coach in Kurt Brittenell. And then we've got a young GA named Hunter Bonza on that side of the ball. Defensively, Chad O'Brien is our defensive coordinator. Ron Shields is our co-defensive coordinator. We have 3 D-line coaches. I have a guy by the name of Dylan Hunt, Malik Edwards, Al Leslie, all coach on the defensive line. Kenny Quavava coaches our linebackers. And then James Prince, along with Ron Shields, coaching the secondary. We have a specialist coach, Sammy LaFata, is one of those guys that helps out another young guy that kicked for us a year ago. So people always look at us and say, hey, you've got a really large staff. We do. The reality is we only have 8 stipends. So a lot of those guys are, as you know, they're volunteers or they're paid through fundraising money or they're just there for the love of the game. So we would be nowhere without the staff that we have. And it's our greatest strength. I mean, people talk about facilities and they talk about, a lot of different things and what it takes, but I think we have great kids right now. I think we've done a really solid job of recruiting, and it's 100% because of the guys in that staff room.
Well, again, congrats, Joe. A great win. We wish you the best the rest of the season. And thanks for this insight on your practices. And again, appreciate it very much.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate being on the show. I'm very humbled and honored to be a part of it. And you certainly have a very notable background in coaching, and to be in a situation like this in year 2 at Adrian College for really a humble high school guy for most of his years is really special. So I appreciate the opportunity.
It's a great honor to be selected for this, and obviously well-deserved. So again, congrats.
Thank you.
That was great information and obviously great performance by Justin and his offense. And he had talked about simplicity in his offense, and it was pretty simple in terms of what he was doing this past weekend, and it worked for him. Simplicity was a factor in what they did, and it worked well for him. Let's move on to our next person that we're going to recognize, Dan Bauder from Wisconsin Platteville, the defensive coordinator, who did a great job against Aurora.
Yeah, Coach Bauder with Platteville, they beat Aurora 41-0 last week, and that is the first time Aurora has been shut out since 2017, which was under their previous coaching staff. Since Aurora's had this coaching staff in place, they've been outstanding on offense, and Platteville just completely shut them down. Aurora averaged 46.6 points per game last year, and they had 0 this last week. So the Pioneers did that by forcing 5 turnovers, 7 punts, and they had a party in the backfield all day. They had 6 sacks, 3 more quarterback hits, and 3 additional tackles for loss. And when you're having that sort of success in the backfield, it leads to some pretty good rushing defense numbers, which they only allowed 1 net rushing yard on the day and 33% third down conversion rate. And when you do that, you don't really let the other offense get into any sort of a groove. Aurora only crossed the 50 4 times, and they had 6 drives that were either 3 and out or quicker with those turnovers. So Coach Bauder got this award 1 week last year. And, Platteville was one of the best defenses in the country last year. They probably could have won it a few extra times, but starting with a clean slate this year, and that was the best defensive performance in the country this year. So improvement and doing it against a quality opponent is what got the Pioneers and their Defensive Coordinator of the Week award this week.
Well, Dan talked about the concept of same as, meaning trying to keep things as same as what they've done with a different concept. And obviously that showed the idea or the thought that they gave up 1 rushing yard against a team as good as Aurora, Logan, I think is absolutely outstanding. That was a great job on their part defensively, and a great win for them.
Yeah, no doubt. Next, let's go into our head coach of the week, which is going to go over to Adrian and head coach Joe Pelka, who beat an FCS opponent, Valparaiso, 10-7. So, I talked about at the beginning that these awards are going to go to teams that show improvement and do it against quality opponents. All right, so offensively, North Carolina, they improved a lot from what their expectation was. And Platteville, they did it against a quality opponent. Well, Adrian, as a team, did outstanding against a very quality opponent, and they improved a lot from what their baseline was. So when you beat an FCS opponent, I'm going to give you the team of the week, the head coach of the week, pretty much every single time. And this was the first win by a D3 school over an FCS team since 2015. So it's been a decade since this has happened. And there's been about a game a year where there was an opportunity for this. And it wasn't a fluke. Adrian outgained Valpo. They had 32 more yards. They had more yards in the air and on the ground. Typically when D3s play these upper level opponents, it's hard to get things going on the ground or to stop the other team on the ground. But Adrian won in the trenches as well as through the air. They went 4 for 5 on 4th downs, and their defense forced 5 turnovers, including one at the end of the game to clinch it after they had their offense put together a great 2-minute drive at the end of the game with an outstanding catch in the end zone with under 30 seconds left to, give them the lead. So, if you win the turnover battle 5-1, good things are going to happen. If you also outgain your opponent, good things are going to happen. And to do it against a FCS quality opponent, it's just outstanding. Great win by Adrian. Congratulations to Coach Pelka and the rest of the staff.
Yeah, Coach Palka did a great job, as you said, with this victory over Valpo. And the thing he talked about with us was his practice format. And he had a unique format in terms of his team periods, and it obviously worked for him. And the fact that they had 5 turnovers, and they did. I watched the game and saw the drive at the end of the game, and the turnover to clinch the game was pretty impressive. It was a great job by Coach Palka and the Adrian staff.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like he was baiting him into throwing that ball, the safety coming over to make that interception. I've watched the last couple drives a couple times too, just because it was probably the game of the week in Division III. I've heard it talked about a lot, and we're talking about it some more. They earned it. I mean, they deserve all the recognition that they're getting.
We want to thank Logan Hansen again for his work and finding these 3 great candidates for the recognition this week. Again, we want to congratulate Coach Palka, Coach Bauder, and Coach Clark for their success. And we look forward to this coming week's success and whoever Coach Hansen or Logan Hansen will find for this week's recipients.
You bet. We got 10 more weeks of this in the regular season. It's a big division. There's always diamonds in the rough that we can find and great performances happening all over the country. And I'm just looking forward to enjoying another year of football.
Thank you for listening to Coaching Coordinator Network, Hansen Ratings D3 Coaching Coordinators of the Week show. We'll be back again next week with our Week 2 honorees. Be sure to check out our presenting sponsor, Tully.app. Go to their website and see all the things that they are doing. Definitely something that can help you as a coach, whether you're at the high school level or the D3 level, in managing your athletes and their development.